Today we are diving into the specifics of air rights and subsurface rights for the national portion of the real estate exam. When you think about property ownership, most people visualize the surface boundaries or the fence line, but the exam requires you to think in three dimensions. Ownership of real property is often described as a bundle of rights that extends downward to the center of the earth and upward to infinity. First, let us look at subsurface rights, which are often referred to as mineral rights. These include everything found below the surface like oil, gas, coal, and precious metals. A common exam scenario involves a landowner who sells their property but retains the rights to the minerals underneath. This is known as a severance of rights. On the exam, you need to understand that these rights can be sold or leased independently of the surface land. If a question asks who owns the oil discovered under a farm after the farm was sold without any specific reservations in the deed, the answer is usually the new owner because real estate ownership includes everything from the core to the heavens, unless otherwise stated. However, if the deed specifically mentions that the previous owner keeps the mineral rights, then those rights have been severed, and the subsurface rights belong to the seller. Moving upward, we have air rights. These allow a property owner to use the space above their land. In dense urban areas, air rights are incredibly valuable for building skyscrapers or walkways over existing structures. You might see a question about a developer purchasing the air rights over a railroad track or a smaller building to construct a high-rise. Just like subsurface rights, air rights can be sold or leased separately. One trap the exam sets involves the limitations on air rights. While you technically own to infinity, federal regulations and local ordinances can limit this, particularly regarding air travel. You cannot sue an airline for trespass every time a plane flies over your house because the public has a right to use the navigable airspace. Another critical concept is the distinction between real property and personal property in this context. Once minerals like coal or oil are extracted from the ground, they transition from real property to personal property. This shift is a favorite for test examiners. They might describe a scenario where a company is mining gold and ask whether the gold sitting in a truck is real or personal property. Because it has been severed from the earth, it is now personal property. While the gold remains in the ground, it is classified as real property. For your mental shortcut, remember the phrase vertical value. This reminds you that property value and legal rights run vertically, not just horizontally across the surface boundaries. When you encounter a question about a neighbor's tree limbs hanging over a fence, you are dealing with an infringement of air rights. If a neighbor's roots are damaging your foundation, that is an infringement of subsurface rights. The key takeaway for the exam is that these rights are divisible. A single piece of land can have one owner for the surface, another for the oil underneath, and a third for the airspace above for a billboard or a bridge. Always look for the word reservation or exception in the exam question, as these words indicate that some part of the bundle of rights is being held back and not transferred with the surface. Think about the concept of lateral support and subjacent support as well. Subjacent support is the right of the surface owner to have their land supported from below. If a mining company owns the subsurface rights and their tunneling causes the surface of your yard to collapse, they have likely violated your right to subjacent support. This is a subtle point often used to distinguish between a simple property sale and a complex severance of rights. In the national exam, you must be prepared to identify which party is liable when one owner usage of their specific rights interferes with another party. Finally, watch out for the terminology regarding water rights versus subsurface rights. While both are under or on the land, they are governed by different legal doctrines, like riparian or prior appropriation. Do not confuse the ownership of a mineral like oil with the right to use an underground aquifer. Mineral rights are part of the subsurface rights we are discussing today, while water rights are often treated as a separate category of the bundle. To keep it straight, imagine the property as a multi-layer cake where each layer can be cut and served to a different person. If you can keep these layers distinct in your mind, you will navigate the ownership questions on your exam with confidence.